Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. What we have here today is technically a no ID Phalaenopsis orchid from a grocery store. However, there were a couple people telling me that it could be the parents that I listed at the bottom of the video, so I thought I would include it here to give you a reference point. So typically when I take a video of an orchid, I try to capture its fullest bloom, but I waited for a little too long this time, so you can see that there is already a flower fading. This orchid this time around is blooming from two spikes, one new spike and one old spike. And later in the video, you'll see the older spike actually, obviously from last year, but put out two secondary spikes. This orchid has always done that. The last bloom video I did on this orchid, it gave me one new spike and then bloom from two existing old spike with four secondary spikes. So it was a total of 5. So it was a show. It was very festive, very busy. This time around, pretty much the same thing, except it's not as many spikes, but the bloom count is just as many, if not more. And here in the video, you'll see this is the old spike, and I actually just went ahead and removed the portion where the flowers were and then kept the nodes, and it just bloomed out with secondary spikes. So that's pretty interesting. This orchid is a very dependable, reliable bloomer. So use that as a basis for what I'm about to say, which I believe will be a little controversial. Some of you will not agree with me, but I'm still gonna say it. I think for this orchid, going forward, I would always cut off its spike when it's done, knowing that it's a reliable bloomer and it would always produce spikes, new spikes. Because new spikes would always have better bloom counts and display. And for secondary spikes, usually they become skinnier and skinnier, and sometimes they put out only 1, 2, 3 buds. It's never as quote-unquote full potential as a new spike would have. So that's what I think I'm gonna do with this orchid. I know, I used to get so excited about secondary spikes because you would almost feel like, hey, you're getting, 2 for the price of 1, because after it finishes blooming, the flower spike continued to grow, secondary spike that is, and then you feel like you have something to look forward to. Yes, and I used to get very excited as well, but as my orchid journey continues, I feel I much rather have a better bloom count and display and not have just 1 or 2 bloom here or there. Obviously, if we're talking about species orchid or sequential bloomers, you don't cut the spikes off. We all know that. And also with species orchid, it's hard for them to bloom with 10-15 flowers at a time, but this orchid is absolutely capable of doing that, as you can see. So I think really next year, after these blooms are done, I will go ahead and cut off all spikes just to see if they will continue to, have that full bloom counts for me. Okay, so as you can see there, this is what the old spike was doing. It was basically growing 2 secondary spike at the time. It was doing really well, and the new spike was really thick. So I knew the new spike would produce a lot of really good flowers. The care for this orchid, I usually give this orchid about 1/4 cup of water, and sometimes depending on humidity and temperature and just how I see this orchid's doing, I may reduce the water down to 1/8 of a cup, but typically that's the range, between 1/8 of a cup and a 1/4 cup. Fertilizer, I use quarter strength only, but I fertilize this orchid every week. except the end of the month, I would use just pure water to soak it. Sometimes I don't soak it, I just add the water, but if I see more build up with salts or whatever, I think this orchid needs a flush, then I would definitely soak it and then try to clean out excess substance, unnecessary substance. This orchid is not yet repotted, so it's still in its original media and container. The media is a mixture of bark chips and sphagnum moss. That's really typical for grocery store Phalaenopsis orchid, at least for Trader Joe's and my local grocery store HEB. Those are the media mix, media of choice for their orchid suppliers. I normally don't repot my orchids right away. I usually like to wait until they bloom, or at least get used to my environment. Obviously, when you get them home and you see that there is potential pest issues or potential root rot issues, you definitely need to repot as soon as you can, and you should. But if you don't see any of those, warning signs, I would wait, and typically I would then simply put them into a bigger outer cup and use that sort of as a quarantine measure. It's not bulletproof, but it has been pretty useful for me. And the outer cup also is used as a saucer, and if I need to soak this orchid, that cup would also be the container in which I put water in and then put the orchid in. Now, with Phalaenopsis orchid, I really think they are easy to grow. And this orchid, by the way, has a nickname. Actually, two. I have people told me that it has a nickname called Panda. Probably it reminds them of the giant panda, but then it also has a nickname of Clown. So this orchid is also known as the Clown Orchid. So maybe some of you can see the resemblance. I can kind of see it for both nicknames, but I'm just happy to see its color combination. It's quite striking, actually. It's that yellow color with a little bit of burgundy in the center, and here and there you see some burgundy polka dots. It's quite interesting, quite charming. Overall, I think it's a good orchid. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!